Sam's Club rotisserie chicken. I like to use the bones for this to make stock. So you're going to take the meat off the bone and put the bones in the crock pot to cook. You can do this on the stove and it's faster, but I find this more convenient. So take the meat off the bones. The string, you definitely don't want it to cook in with the chicken. It's easy to leave in there because it's kind of a pain to get out, but you do not want it in with your chicken. Just FYI. Now personally, I don't worry about getting all the chicken off of the carcass. I'm okay some of it going to waste in the stock. It adds flavor and I just don't worry about it that much. So I'm just going to put the rest of this in. I also like to put the drippings in because they are partly like, I don't know, fat, but they have a nice flavor. So in they go as well. Fill up the crock pot with water till it is covering the chicken bones. You are going to have to add water as you go throughout the cooking because you're going to cook this for 12 to 24 hours at low and just keep cooking it, and that's the way you make broth. This is the way you make bone broth for chicken or beef. I think you can cook beef broth a little longer because the bone is a little thicker. For seasonings for chicken broth, I like to use bay leaves, garlic salt, peppercorns, onion powder, sage, parsley, and oregano. You can substitute the oregano for whatever you like, but for Avgolemono, which is Greek egg lemon soup, we use the oregano and it's the best. So all of that goes in. I also like to throw in some hearts from some celery just in as well. So stir that in, your spices and celery. Stick the lid on and cook for 12 to 24 hours. So the soup cooked all night, and that's what it looks like as it's cooking. Very steamy, bubbly. All the skin rises to the top, the bones start to look porous, and that's how you know it is done. Also, it smells and looks really dark. So we're gonna strain it and put it in a pot to cook. So this way of making bone broth, make sure you get all the nutrients out of the bones. This is my setup for straining. Wire mesh strainer in the stock pot I'm going to use, and underneath definitely a pot holder. And that's a nice thick one. I don't want to burn a hole into my counter. And oven mitts. You can use just pot holders if you want, but I know that my crock is pretty heavy with the stock in it, and so I want to make sure I get a good hold and don't burn myself. I'm not going to do that on camera because it's kind of treacherous. Our stock is done. Stock is also called bone broth, and a lot of people drink it just as broth when they're getting into keto, and if they experience keto flu symptoms. It's got a lot of nutrients and salt, which will help you get through that initial period. I didn't suffer a lot from keto flu, so but I also drank bone broth made with bouillon in the beginning from like the first couple of days, and that seemed to ease the symptoms to nothing for me, at least. I like this kind of bone broth because it's obvious when it's done. It's a nice rich color. The bones look a little porous. It's easy to make. Chicken is readily available, so it's easy and quick. It costs very little to get a chicken, a rotisserie chicken, and you can do it in the crock pot, which is great for someone who has a lot of cooking to do, which you will on keto. So this is it. That's how you do it. I'm going to use this to make Avgolemono, which is egg lemon soup with chicken. So stay tuned for that. So for my Avgolemono, I don't skim the soup. With chicken noodle soup, you always skim off the fat. I like to wait till it bubbles to skim it, but I've been told that with Avgolemono you don't do that. It's just fine if you don't. So I have the stove on about medium, and I'm going to let this come back to a boil. I'm going to add the chicken and get the egg mixture ready to go. Okay, with your soup bubbling away, you're going to add your chicken. Not all at once, so you don't want to swamp it onto the stove. I add a little extra chicken. I cooked up the chicken that we bought, the chicken tenders tenderloin that we bought, and baked it in the oven on low, and then I added about an extra pound of that, so it'll be extra meaty, which is nice because it makes the soup last a little longer, and it's a great soup for leftovers for lunch for the rest of the week. So we're gonna let that cook until the chicken is nice and hot. Now is also the time you want to taste the broth to make sure that it doesn't need some salt or some other spice or something. You hate to get the soup all the way done and then realize you needed to add something else. We have 3 egg yolks and 3 whole eggs and a tablespoon of true lemon. In this recipe you can use regular real lemons, but I find this works just as good. It keeps a lot longer than a regular lemon, and I don't have to worry about juicing a lemon. So I use a tablespoon. You can use less or more. We like it lemony, so that's the way we do it. So we're into the mixing bowl with all of this. You want to make sure your eggs and lemon powder or lemon is mixed thoroughly. You don't want to whip it up or anything, but mixed thoroughly. And you can do this part by hand, but I prefer the security of using a mixer. So here we go. We're going to add some of the hot broth into the soup. We're going to temper the eggs, which sounds far more intimidating than it is. It is a delicate process, but you can do it. So I will go ahead and do that now. I have hot chicken stock here in a container with a pour spout, and I have a ladle, and I'm going to start with the ladle and then pour it in as I'm sure the eggs are well tempered. So here we go. So sometimes a little chicken gets in, that's no big deal. It just gets mixed around a little bit, so that's how you do it. That's how you temper the eggs. I like to use the bowl with a handle because this is rather hot now, so that's all you do. You whisk in the hot liquid until the eggs are hot, and you can see they're just fine. Not cooked, not scrambled is really the goal. You don't want egg drop soup. So I'm going to add this to the stock pot, but I've already turned it off and I want to make sure it's not bubbling at all when I add the egg. So here's my chicken and broth. I took about 2 cups of the broth using a ladle out and use that to temper the eggs, and now I'm going to add the eggs to this. It's still steaming, but it's not bubbling, so it's good to go. So here we go. You have to stir while adding, and you're going to start adding slowly. And it's going to turn kind of a lighter color and it won't be clear anymore. It'll look like a creamy soup, and it'll feel and taste like a creamy soup as well. So we have finished Avgolemono. Here it is. Eggs tempered and incorporated, and we're ready to serve. It's a really hearty soup with a nice thick broth, lots of protein, and it's perfect for keto. Enjoy! So after it's all said and done and we had lunch, there are 7 bowls of soup to go into the fridge, and it will be 7 lunches for the coming week. It's all in all a great and easy meal, and something that we make regularly and helps keep us on track with keto. So try Avgolemono or chicken soup of your liking. You can make regular chicken noodle soup without the noodles, with just some vegetables, and that would be nice too, but this offers you a little more protein and a little more substance, so give it a try.